All right, yo, what is good, everybody? It is the Godfather of VR, the ageless wonder, the man Lincoln Clay, coming back with another video. This one isn't exactly gaming related, but it is YouTube related. One second, everybody. I think I need to turn this fan down because I don't know how much noise it's making. So give me a second, please. All right. So, tonight, as a lot of you may know, tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern is the rematch between YouTubers KSI and Logan Paul. I guess their first fight ended in a draw, which I did not see. But after that, I believe that prompted KSI to reach out to my uncle, Jeff Mayweather, to train him for tonight's fight. Also, on the undercard of that fight, Devin Haney will be fighting on that undercard. Now, he is a fighter that I believe is under the Mayweather Promotions banner, and I believe he is trained by Floyd Mayweather Sr., another one of my uncles. He's going to be on the undercard of that fight, and this is pretty huge when a fight between two YouTubers, which I believe this is a pay-per-view event. This is a pretty huge event when two YouTubers are the headline, but you've got legitimate fighters, legitimate boxers, sanctioned boxers on undercards. So Jeff is training KSI for this rematch, and I believe even Floyd Sr. might have worked with him a little bit too. But I definitely want to take this moment to wish Jeff good luck tonight, and hopefully KSI will pull out the victory tonight. But I do want to give you a little bit of background about Jeff and my experiences when I was a kid. Because I pretty much went everywhere with Jeff when I was a kid. So, when I was a kid, Jeff loved to play basketball, and I went everywhere with him. It was like every time he got on his bike, I would ask him, where are you going? He said, I'm going up to Oakdale School to play some basketball or whatever other court that he wanted to play at. Well, let me come with you. Come on. So I'd jump on my bike and I'd go with him, and I'd go up to the courts and sit there for about 2 hours and watch him play basketball. Now, Jeff does have Mayweather blood running through him, so he was a trash talker on the basketball courts. So out of the Mayweathers, he probably talks the least trash. He's the most humble. He's the most approachable. But do not be fooled by that, because on the basketball court, he used to talk a lot of trash. And I've seen it with my own eyes too many times. I've seen situations on the basketball court where he would tell the guy that he's going to take the ball from him, and as soon as the guy opened his mouth, it's like, oh, you ain't going to do strip and take the ball from him, and he's already on the other end for a layup. We did a lot of when I was a kid. My uncle Roger used to take us to this theater called the Savoy. Somehow Roger would get tickets every week, and we'd go to the Savoy and watch kung fu movies. My mother would drop us off at the theater and then come back a couple hours later and pick us up. So because of that, I was like, that's what got me real big into the martial arts. And so I used to spar with Jeff a lot, even though I didn't know any martial arts at the time. But then when I took karate for real, because I took Okinawan Shorin-ryu for about 4 years, and so when I learned karate for real, then I was really trying to spar with him. So a lot of good times, a lot of funny moments with that. So a little bit about Jeff, you know. So now I'll fast forward to when he went to college. He went to Western Michigan University in Kalamazoo, Michigan, and he has a degree in graphic design. You know, but he only worked in that field for a short time, and I think for a while he was trying to decide what he was going to do, and then I think he I believe he fought in the amateurs for a little bit, and then I think he went out to Las Vegas a couple of times, and then I think he made the decision to move out to Las Vegas and turn pro. Now, for the most part, I think he's had a successful career. Although he's more famous as a trainer than he is a fighter. He has fought Oscar De La Hoya before, and I think he fought Todd Kid Foster. I think when he retired, I didn't realize he had that many fights. But I might have to Google it. But off the top of my head, I think Jeff might have had over 50 wins. I don't know, maybe 10 losses in his career, something like that. And it's not it wasn't a major belt, but he did become a champion. You know, because I think one time when I was in Las Vegas, well, I knew about the championship. I think he was a IBU champion, which I think stands for International Boxing Union. And but I did see the belt when I a few years ago when I was in Las Vegas and I went to his condo. You know, the belt was like on a mantle over the fireplace. So I did see the belt. And as I said before, he's more well known for his training resume than his boxing resume, because he's got a pretty long boxing resume. He has trained. He's in the last 5-10 years, he's been one of the most sought out trainers out there, with boxers and UFC fighters. He's worked with He's worked with Big Country Roy Nelson of the UFC, and at the time that Jeff became his trainer, Big Country Roy Nelson was on his last leg with the UFC. I guess this, to me, I think Dana White was like trying to stir up drama with the UFC and make it a little more spicy. So, he was kind of going through this phase where, certain fighters were on the verge of being, kicked out of the UFC if they didn't, if they didn't win some fights or be a little more exciting. So at this particular time that Jeff became Roy Nelson's trainer, he was on the ropes. He was on his last leg with the UFC. He was on the verge of being kicked out of the UFC if he didn't win his next upcoming fight. So Jeff trained Roy Nelson for that fight. And, to give you a little bit of background about that, when Jeff first met up with Roy Nelson, he said Roy Nelson could fight. The problem was his stamina. So they worked on his stamina because I guess the guy had hands. And long story short, Roy Nelson in that fight, that do or die fight for the UFC, I think he knocked the dude out in like 30 seconds. He caught the dude with an overhand right and put him to sleep. And I'm sure you can go to YouTube and find that fight somewhere. Him and Roy Nelson had a pretty good friendship, for the while that they were together. They made a couple of funny like WWE videos where like Roy Nelson put Jeff into a sleeper hold and was choking him out. That was a pretty funny video. And Jeff has worked with some big name fighters and UFC fighters. I think Jeff has worked with Rampage. I think he's worked with King Mo. I think he had discussions with George St. Pierre. Whether or not Jeff would become his trainer or not, I can't remember whether that actually materialized. But I know that he was in discussions with Georges St. Pierre because Jeff told me that himself personally. Fighters, he trained Sultan Ibragimov, which a lot of people may not know who Sultan Ibragimov is. I believe he's a Russian fighter. That was Jeff trained him for his championship win over Evander Holyfield. That fight was in Russia, and he beat Holyfield to win the championship. Now, unfortunately, another fight that Jeff trained Ibragimov in, I believe, was his fight, against Vladimir Klitschko. Unfortunately, Ibragimov lost that fight, but that was another big moment for Jeff. That was a weird one because I think that was the first time I ever seen Jeff on HBO, because I believe that fight was on HBO. So he's had other champions too. I think Celestino Caballero. I think he's a Panamanian fighter, and I think for a minute Celestino was on his way to being considered like one of the best pound for pound fighters in the world, and I think for a minute there was it was starting to look like Celestino and Yuriorkis Gamboa was on a collision course for those two to meet up in a championship fight. See other big moments on Jeff's training resume. He trained Steve 2-Pound Forbes in his fight against Oscar De La Hoya. Now, what made that fight really interesting is that Steve Forbes, who won the Contender, that reality fighting show, I think either he won it or he was like a finalist. But in any case, so this was around the time that Floyd Jr. had beat De La Hoya, and there was talks about the rematch. So I believe, so for this rematch, De La Hoya, that was the reason that Oscar De La Hoya brought my uncle Floyd Mayweather Sr. in to train him. He brought him in to train him for the rematch against Floyd. And so as a tune-up fight, Oscar De La Hoya fought Steve Forbes, and originally my other uncle Roger Mayweather was going to train Steve Forbes for this fight, but he pulled out, and then and so Jeff stepped in. That fight was on Fox, and you can probably look that fight up on YouTube somewhere. That was a really weird fight because you had my two uncles training against each other. Floyd Sr. was in the corner with De La Hoya, and Jeff was in the corner with Steve Forbes. Now, in the interest of generating a big fight, it was in the best interest that De La Hoya won that fight, because if De La Hoya looked impressive, it would also build up more hype for the rematch with Floyd. But deep down inside, I really wanted Forbes to win that fight because I wanted Jeff to get the notoriety that he deserved, because he didn't have the notoriety of a Floyd Sr. or Roger. So I was really pulling for Jeff to win that fight. But it was really weird, and I think it was maybe last summer I had finally got around to asking Jeff, was that weird being in a fight like that and your brother being in the other corner? And he said, no, it didn't feel weird to him. So that was a really interesting moment too. And the thing about it is, I believe Forbes nearly beat De La Hoya, because he gave De La Hoya a run. For a minute, it looked like he was confusing De La Hoya. He was starting to toy with De La Hoya, starting to taunt him a little bit. And he was touching De La Hoya for a minute. But I will say that I think if Forbes wouldn't have knocked De La Hoya out, he would not have gotten the win, because that would have fucked everything up if Forbes would have won that fight. It would have fucked up everything for the Floyd De La Hoya rematch. So he would have had to knock De La Hoya into the next dimension to get that win. But it was still, to me, that was still a big moment. And so now we have tonight where KSI takes on Logan Paul, which I said before is a rematch, or because their first fight ended in a draw. So I believe KSI reached out to Jeff, and there is over the past year there is a video of Jeff talking to KSI, Big Floyd Sr. talking to KSI, putting in pad work with him and that kind of stuff. And you can look that stuff on YouTube. It's there. There's a lot of footage there. Jeff also has a YouTube channel called the Mayweather Channel, where Jeff is a trainer at the Mayweather Gym, and he covers a lot of boxing topics, a lot of upcoming fights, getting people's opinions on who might win an upcoming fight. So I will put a link to the Mayweather Channel in the description, so definitely go check it out. Go subscribe to that. And Jeff is definitely, like I said before, out of the Mayweathers, he's the most humble out of them, and he's the most approachable. So I would say, hey, go to the Mayweather Channel, check out the videos, leave some comments, and if he has a moment, there's a pretty good chance he'll respond to the comments, because that is definitely something that Jeff tried to do, especially on Facebook. Whenever he would make a Facebook post, he would definitely try to respond to everybody in the comments. So if he doesn't respond, it'd simply be a case of that he just didn't get a chance to get around to it. It wouldn't be a case of that he doesn't care, because he does care, and he is approachable. So definitely check out the Mayweather Channel. I will put a link to that in the description. So also, I think before I get ready to go, I also want to mention to everybody that I know a few months ago, earlier this year, that I was supposed to have Jeff as a guest on the Lincoln Show. And at the time, I didn't do it. Jeff agreed to do it. We talked over the phone, and I talked to him, and then gave him a heads up of what kind of questions that I might ask him. But I didn't follow through with it because YouTube was getting ready to do away with Google Hangouts, and we were going to have to start looking around for another source to do our streamings and our broadcasts and those kind of things. I didn't want to ask Jeff to break away from his busy schedule to jump through hoops to try to create accounts for this and for that, for Discord or whatever. But but I'm still planning on doing it. In fact, I'm going to contact him tomorrow, because I'm not going to contact him today because for obvious reasons. He's got the big fight tonight. But I am going to contact him and ask him if he's still available to come on to the Lincoln Show once I get out of jail, so we can do a live podcast. I want to do this live because I want you guys to be a part of this podcast and be able to submit your questions and all this kind of stuff. But I will warn everybody that when I assuming that I do this, I will not put up with trolls. Anyone coming in with trolls will be blocked. So, but I will talk to him tomorrow and ask him if he's still available to do this once I get out of YouTube jail. Because, and as crazy as it sounds, Jeff is actually connected to gaming a little bit. Because in the beginning of Floyd Jr.'s career, not only was Jeff one of his trainers, he was also Floyd's manager. And, it probably an advisor would probably be a better role, manager / advisor, because Jeff was actually handling some of the contracts. And I think one of the contracts that Jeff worked out was when Floyd was on the Fight Night games. Because I think Floyd appeared on maybe 2 or 3 of the Fight Night games, and I believe it was Jeff who worked those contracts out with EA. And now when I talked to Floyd Jr. about it, because I had told him, hey, I played, Fight Night, and I played using your character, and I remember Floyd telling me, he said he doesn't play video games that much, and I said, well, how did that happen? You being on the game, and he said he said he simply flew out to California. They did a face scan on him and cut him a check. So, but yeah, as far as the contract goes, I think Jeff worked that contract out for Floyd to appear on the Fight Night game, and not only that, Jeff also put together a fight that Floyd had on TNT, and this was a special. TNT doesn't broadcast fights, but Jeff was the one who put this together. Floyd was fighting against a guy named Carlos Rios. Never heard of the guy, but the circumstances surrounding the fight. Grand Rapids had a new arena downtown called Van Andel Arena, and Jeff was the one who put everything together for this fight to happen at Van Andel Arena. He convinced Floyd to take a pay that was less than his market value in order to get more exposure for him out there in boxing. So they made the tickets very affordable. The tickets at the time was $50 for ringside seats. You think you could get a ringside seat for a Floyd Mayweather fight now for $50? If Floyd were to come out of retirement and fight today, a ringside seat might still run $50,000 easy. So Jeff was the one to put that together. So Floyd fought on TNT in front of a sold-out Van Andel Arena, and that was one of the fights to help propel Floyd to the next level in terms of his fame. Jeff was the one that put that together. Because Jeff was the one that convinced him to take a little bit less money than his market value in order to help his notoriety rise. So Jeff did a lot of the behind the scenes work in the beginning of Floyd's career. So I'll definitely want to ask him about that kind of stuff. Even though I know a lot about what's going on because he told me personally, but I will ask him that stuff, for you. So hopefully when we can make this happen, of him coming on the Lincoln Show, then we can talk about that. So the way things are looking right now, I think I'm going to go with StreamYards because from a guest standpoint, StreamYards seems pretty easy. I've been on Craig Harris's podcast. I've been on Titanfall Princess's podcast, and they both use StreamYard. And all they did was simply send me an invite, through Twitter. And as soon as I answered the invite, it was like, okay, you're backstage. Is just waiting for them to bring me onto the show. So I think StreamYards will be the best way for me to have Jeff come on as a guest onto the Lincoln Show and not have to jump through a bunch of hoops, creating accounts and verifying this and doing that, and this. So I think I'm planning on making this happen with StreamYards. And not only that, I think with StreamYards, he can do it from his phone as well, so he doesn't have to be at a computer. And hopefully we can do this interview by way of video, because I'd like to get him on camera rather than the old Google Hangouts way where people are posting thumbnails and pics and that kind of stuff. So I definitely have not forgotten about Jeff coming on to the Lincoln Show. I still plan on making that happen. So again, tomorrow I will get in touch with Jeff, and then once we talk, and hopefully if he agrees to do it, after I get out of YouTube jail, then I'll let you guys know. And as we draw closer to me getting out of jail, then I'll give you guys a solid date. So, excuse me. So again, before I go, I just want to remind everybody to go to the Mayweather channel, sub to the channel. It's a boxing channel, but there's a lot of comedy in the channel because Jeff definitely has a sense of humor. He definitely likes to joke, and him and Floyd Sr. they share a lot of funny moments together. Trash talking about who's the fastest, who can dance the best, those kind of things. So definitely go to the Mayweather channel and subscribe and check him out. And like I said, leave a comment in these videos. And I'd say there's a pretty good chance of Jeff responding to you. So before I go, I just want to say to my Uncle Jeff, good luck tonight. Best of luck to KSI. And I'll be in touch with you soon. And that's going to do it for me. Everybody like, comment, share. Thanks a lot. Thanks for watching this video, allowing me to share a little bit of family history. And that's going to do it for me. And I will talk to y'all later. And maybe I'll give my thoughts on the fight tomorrow. I do believe it's a pay-per-view fight, and I think it's on some site called Danzn.com. That's DAZN.com. But if you're not certain, you can Google it and get the information. Just type in the Google search KSI versus Logan Paul, and somewhere in there you'll see some kind of link with the information of when and where you can catch the fight. So definitely check that out. There's going to be some legitimate fights on the undercard that should make for some exciting fights. And that's going to do it for me. I will talk to y'all later. Deuces.